The line is that for every illness on the planet, there's a plant to help it. Farmers knew how to do this. My teachers in Peru don't have maybe past a third or fourth grade education, and they're like, I would consider them to be doctors.
Yeah.
By the plants they know how to use and the therapies they know how to work on.
Right, they know the antiseptic stuff.
All of it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, COVID didn't even touch them.
Our potential, it's exponential.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another podcast of the Abundant Souls. Today, I have a very abundant soul and a plant whisperer, medicine maker. Ralph, thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Jack.
Heck yeah. It's an honor to have you, man.
It's really good to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So tell me, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I've been working with the plants, in various facets. So lately, planting out a little bit of a nucleus of, the trio of bananas, yucca, and papaya, kind of getting those going.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Staple crop.
Exactly.
Tell people about, because I know you make medicines too, and you do so many things. You travel.
Mm-hmm.
What are you here for a while? Like, are you working on some plant projects?
Yeah, I'm actually leaving soon, which seems to be something I'm saying often, but...
Where, to Peru?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm leading a group down there for some dieta work, some journey work down there, some healing work.
Cool. Dieta. What's that all about?
We're moving fast.
We go deep.
I'm aware. You only have an hour. You got to make the most of it, right?
That's right, man. What's that?
So, yeah, the dieta process is like, essentially, the word means to diet, right? But in our understanding, it's like, we see it as like I'm not going to eat pork for a week or something like that. But in the deeper context, dieta is a way of fasting with the plants. So I like to relate to the story of like Christ's 40 days on the mountain, It's kind of like that. It's like the Amazonian version of fasting, but with plants.
Fasting with the plants.
With the plants. So in the sense that each plant has a personality, right? And so I guess that's enough to be a given right there and worthy of an explanation. But each plant has a way, let's say it like that, or a spirit to it.
A spirit, for sure.
And so the fasting with that makes you open to what is there. And that plant helps you in a very unique way. And so there's people that diet plants for their whole lives, my teacher being one of them. And they collect these personalities and understandings and ways that they work with different people and different disease processes, physical, mental, and otherwise. And so, yeah, I've been working with that way for the past 11, 12 years. And this is like the first organized group I'm bringing down to experience that. They've been asking me to go.
Congrats, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
It's going to be good.
So it's like a detox, like a cleanse with the plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So you take the plant medicines during the ceremony, or is it just with the plants?
It's kind of like, it's a little of both. So, in the morning, in the very early morning, preferably around like 5, even earlier sometimes, you would start with your infusion or a cold extract of your herb. And it can be anything as simple as oak. If you were to diet things in Florida, you can diet mango. You can diet any of these living beings that are all around us. And down there they have their own, Rolodex of plants.
Got it.
And so you drink that in the morning, and then you'd immediately take a cold bath. And then from there, you kind of just live your simple life that you're subscribing to, which is like very simple. And so it's like, in the Western way of having so much at our fingertips, going without is a medicine in and of itself.
Facts.
Yeah. So.
And this is music to me, bro, because I'm so in the Matrix, man, if you will, where I do, appreciate and definitely want to let more of that into my life, where living without.
Yeah, it's a balance. So
facts.
People, misunderstand sometimes that it's about like running away or like hiding in the cave, but it's about being in both worlds. So it's a great, especially for men, like to have that time to kind of like reflect and go in, where generally we don't offer that to ourselves, where women have that kind of built in if they allow themselves to have that monthly, right? We have to kind of carve that time out and make it for ourselves, which I find to be critical.
That's a beautiful point. And you could go extreme both ways, you're right. Like, if you're too much of a hermit, you're like, wow, I want to go be with people. Yeah.
So like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. dancing.
So you go deep into the forest, the Amazon jungle. Tell people about it. Are you with like the actual indigenous people?
Yeah, I've been visiting and staying with and have made like deep relationships with the Witoto and Yagua people. They're particularly my teacher, Don Luis Pinedo, and his wife, Sarah. He's Witoto and she's Yagua, and they married, so it's like two tribes coming together in a way.
Wow.
And I met them years and years ago, and I go down there every year if I can, spend some time there, at least a month, if not many more. So last year I was there for 3.5 months. And yeah, it's an incredible place. Very simple, very rustic, very rural, and not too far out. You know, it's only like an hour from the city, but you feel like you're well away from everything.
Gotcha.
So it's a good like first step for people to like go out into nature a little bit more, you know, because it's like for that it could be like the deepest that anyone's ever been away from civilization.
Totally.
But yeah, they're a largely sustainable, regenerative community without any of the taglines or hashtags.
Permaculture group
At 110%. But because they have to, you know, not because it's like cool. And
that's it.
You know, they're doing largely the staple crops in like acre to 2 acre clearings, rotating them every 10 to 15 years.
The cassava that you're talking about.
Cassava, banana, plantain, tons of papaya. Yeah, those are the main ones. And then lots of chickens. You know, and then
pigeon peas?
They have them in the markets, but they don't. I haven't seen the people I know growing them. I'm trying to work that in.
Cool.
Trust me.
Yeah, we all have stuff to share with each other, right? That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You bring them plants as well.
Yeah, I do. I bring them gifts, and they share gifts back. So it's like it's been this really beautiful botanical highway of exchange that I feel like to me feels ancient and very appropriate. Like,
and you've given me plants from there. Like it's beautiful, man. The plant network.
Yeah, it's endless. I love it. It really inspires me because, you know, a lot of people, and it's not good or bad. It's just that a lot of people go to these places getting a lot, and I feel like after getting so much, I felt so filled with that. And it's like how to return it in a way that's appropriate, and not thinking like, oh,
beautiful.
This is what they need. It's like, what do you want?
Yeah,
you know, because a lot of people
most
go to these
people
places,
don't define even what they want.
Right. Well,
that's a beautiful question, bro.
Yeah, and like they go to these places and they bring like, you know, the NGO nonprofit, like we're gonna build you a greenhouse in the Amazon. And people
inflicting their will.
Exactly. And so instead of that, I go like, hey, what are you looking for? And they're like, new plants, new fruits. I'm like, oh, I got you.
Enhance what they already got going, man.
So it's like stretching the season of edibility and the harvest and things like that. So like bringing in new things. We brought them casturi. It's a new one for there.
Wow, tell us about it.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Casturi. Is that the
Magnifera casturi, it's another mango species. So it can handle the wet season. Like it needs a wet season like they have.
That's right.
It needs more rain, you know. So they live in the super tropics, and mangoes fruit very infrequently because they need that like either that defiant like cold trigger or that dry trigger,
which we have here.
Which we have perfectly here,
That's
right?
It.
And they have like huge mangoes, man, like this that are like, you know, sometimes just evergreen and they'll set flower. And then the flowers fall off because it gets hot again. So
it's so interesting how different plants, I'm just getting excited, that here do this thing. You go to Hawaii or you go here, does a way different thing.
Yeah. Even West Palm, the Loxahatchee, right? Like they have trouble out there sometimes with flower rot and like the more humidity being inland. And yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
What else do you grow out there, man? Like, you were telling me about abius. Like, what do you guys got
in the Amazon?
Yeah, what is what do they grow there?
Abiu, they call it kaimito. So
interesting.
It's like, you know, it's funny. I really love this. Where some of our favorite stuff is like the rare collectors and fruit stewards and stuff. Are their weeds.
I love it.
Like strawberry tree, we sell, what is it, like $50 for 3 gallons, $60? Bro, it's in the city streets growing through sidewalk cracks.
Yeah. It's a weed.
It's 100, not even a weed. It's a super weed. Like it's everywhere.
And people geek out about it.
Here. Yeah. And so I tell my teacher that. I'm like telling my friends down there, I'm like, you wouldn't even believe, you know, you don't even get it.
And I mean, I did. It's just so funny, man, how we grow up. Exactly. Like we didn't grow up with that. Mm-hmm. So it's exciting. We're 30 years old eating a strawberry tree. And you feel like you're 2 years old again.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's really funny. And then, Yeah, what else do they have going on there? One of their main things are the palm fruits, which, besides coconut, which is pretty well known, there's aguaje, which is a really big one that Matt
Is
Reese
that
is
like
getting into.
pehibaye?
No, that's peach palm, pifayo.
Agua.
Aguaje is Mauritia flexosa, I think is the name, and it's just this off the tree, off the palm. It's savory. It kind of looks like a dinosaur egg, if you can imagine that, or like snake skin on the outside, almost like salak a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like a creamy, savory flavor
No way.
that they usually will dip in salt or something, or just eat plain. And
I
but
love salak.
do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is nothing like that, but it looks like from the outside the same.
Got it. Yeah, when you said it, snaky, so
Yeah.
different.
It's such an interesting fruit, and I think that's their largest consumed fruit in the
Interesting.
entire Amazon
Aguaje?
by the tonnage. Yeah. Mhm.
And Matt Reese is trying to grow it?
Yeah, he got a few from me, and I'm like, if anyone can grow this, it's you.
Yeah.
Because he's got that swampy like back acreage, and he needs
And
water.
he
like that.
is like in a 9B situation too, right?
I think
10A?
I hope so, because it
Yeah.
needs warmth.
I think it's 10A. I think you're right. I don't know.
I hope
But
so.
but what I'm saying is he's on the edge.
Hmm.
So it's so interesting. He could do so much there.
Yeah, he just has a lot of water, which this wants. So I was like,
Okay.
you're the guy for this. They'll grow in the middle of ponds, man. Like imagine a palm emerging from the water like that. It's such
At
a
Riverbend Park.
one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We planted, just a side note, we planted some plants. I'm not going to say where, but over there at some place. And people just mowed it over like perfectly nice mulberry, And so I'm just learning you got to pick and choose your spots. That's the message.
You did that a few years ago, right? I remember you
Yeah.
like
You remember that?
would you had a name for it, like some kind of campaign you were doing or something like that.
Okay, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Was it like the plant daily? I
That's
planted
what
a
it was.
fruit. Yeah, I planted a fruit tree every single day.
Hmm.
Yeah, people were like, dude, keep going.
Hmm.
That was a lot of fun.
I remember you doing that, and recently I've been more intensively stewarding some land that's wild,
Love it.
and it's like covered in carrot wood, Brazilian pepper, Australian pine, elephant grass, all the staples that take over in open spaces for right reason to kind of like, inoculate that placenta one, if you will. And I'm carving out those spaces the last few years and planting things there without care. And I've really learned, similar to you, what does well and what does not without human intervention,
And it's a big deal.
It is.
That
Mhm.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
You go back in 2 years, you're like, wow, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh man, I wish I did this, and that.
Right.
I mulched it.
Anything in the nursery like that doesn't get water and it's okay, I've been putting there. And like,
Cool.
how you'll have some stuff in shade, and like if you have them in shade and they start leaning for the sun, it means that they don't want to be in shade because they're looking for the sun like this. They start like careening either way.
Right.
And then there's some that will grow erect, like straight up, right under a tree. And I'm like, those are the ones I want that don't need water. They'll grow like that because they can handle the understory temporarily. So I've been like really looking at those fine details of like what wants to be where, and trying to plant out this edge. Because if you can imagine like a 300-foot edge of elephant grass, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Napier grass.
Yeah.
So running like that. And every year it creeps further and further into this field of like 5 acres, all wild land. And so I've been like carving out the elephant grass, like, a 10-foot radius, and planting the tree and mulching it heavy with that grass, and like visiting it maybe once a month to cut the grass again around it. But it's been going, man. Like I've been putting natives back
Cool.
there, fruit trees, trying to like extend that edge. If the edge is already creeping out, I'm going to plant trees. So then it keeps on going and I can just keep planting trees.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Guerilla planting,
Mm-hmm.
the blessings of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're giving, by the way, guys, we're just planting the earth. No one's paying us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who does that?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, I don't know, my lesson, I want to hear what you've learned from it, bro. It's like contributing just to the land without any expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It gives back so much more. Like, people bring me plants that next week or whatever. Like, contribution, you know?
Yeah, I always say the payments aren't solely in financial ways, right? So I like to say it's like God pays me first. So that's what
Beautiful.
that's my main concern, is just being in right relationship, because everything flows from there,
Wow.
So
Talk about that, dude.
yeah, it's like it's so easy in the world to become obsessed about making the dollar and like getting stingy and kind of, just getting in that way of like cycling in. And I go there sometimes. I catch myself. I'm like, damn, like I can't stop thinking about this and obsessing about that way to try and like, make things work. And then I relax and let it flow. And like, I have my people that ask me for help here and there, and I always help. It's like always opening the door. Like you were saying, like that flow really starts to open up, and then people start calling you, like you said, like, hey, I got this for you, I got this for you, and it just starts coming in like in a way that's just amazing.
Wow.
So
Thanks for bringing that up, dude, because I think a lot of people don't want to talk about God or whatever, but it's like, dude, the more you like that's the only thing that matters. You impress God. You're out here, serving him. God is of abundance, not of scarcity.
100%.
Don't you think?
I mean, yeah. It's strange how it's become almost like, I'd say like almost like God's like almost a 4-letter word. It's a 3-letter word, but you know what I'm saying? Like people are afraid to say it. It's like the G word.
Right.
And I think that comes to potentially like some self-awareness patterns of like, feeling like, oh shit, I'm in trouble,
Yeah.
But yeah, like the plants really helped me with that relationship, man. Like, in that spiritual way, like kind of reassessing,
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And we don't need to get into it if you don't want, but I know you've had experience where you almost like passed. I've had like near-death experiences too. Do you want to talk about that? Did that like bring on like belief in something,
Yeah, the story is that I had a tetanus shot when I was 19. I had stepped on a nail. I was at a restaurant I was working at and like was in the back parking lot. And you can really hear that bass, that floor tom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I stepped on a nail and I got a tetanus shot. And shortly thereafter, I developed a nerve disease called Guillain-Barré, which was pretty rare. I think it's gaining popularity from the recent experience we've been going through the last few years. And it's a demyelinating, ascending paralysis that starts around the feet usually and like comes up the whole body in like a wave and will take you out, So the myelin sheath, if you're aware, is like that protective element around each nerve. And what this does, it's a process where your body destroys that, so you have no protection over the nerves. So in some cases you'll feel like numbness or like not feel much. And in other cases, you'll feel numbness with like lightning and fire neuropathy. So I was in the latter. And it was quite a life-changing experience. Like within a few days, I was out, unable to move. And I was at Bethesda Hospital for 48 days. My insurance stopped covering me. So it was kind of like the American nightmare,
Wow.
in a lot of ways, at least in the medical sense. And so from there, I got signed out and I had like a $1 million hospital bill at 19 years old. And I learned how to walk again at home, like with my friends, like helped me walk down the street.
Wow. You learned how to walk again. How old were you?
19.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a miracle, right? And so like there's a guy, if you don't know him, I highly suggest you listen to. Maybe you can have him on the podcast. His name's Stephen Jenkinson. And so he speaks about having that like second chance.
I remember you telling me about him.
And with that second chance, it's like the debt. For me, I feel this really intensely. It's like there's this like repayment or like this mending of the hole that you came back in from, right? And so it's like everything you're doing is that payment towards the gratitude of like your chance to be here again.
The hole you came back in from, mending that.
Yeah, and so like the goodness that you set forth, the things you plant in both ways, and like the people you help, and your general attitude like changes drastically, right? Like after something like that.
Big time. Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why we ended up here talking about this out of all the things we could talk about.
Yeah.
Ralph, thank you, bro. Yeah, that's a miracle.
Yeah, it kind of, for me, it ended up being like a perspective shift, from that point on. There was definitely obviously some bitterness in the beginning of being in that, like in the hospital room. If you would come in and be like, don't you feel grateful? I'd be like, get the out of here,
It wasn't instant enlightenment.
No.
Exactly.
No.
Thank you for mentioning that.
No, it was painful, man. It was very, very intense. So, but through that process, I was shown the compassion to have for people who are suffering. It's like tremendous. And so, looking back, I always give great gratitude. And I visit the hospital when I can to see those nurses and the therapist that took care of me, because it was those people, the nurses in particular, the therapists, that really like tended to me in a loving, like motherly way, Or like sometimes the docs would come in with a clipboard and not even look at me and be like, pain level 1 through 10. And I'd be like, I would just scream, I wanted to kill him.
It was
And
like Idiocracy.
Right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? And so looking back like that, the way that they interact with the patient affects the patient.
Big time. In
Of
your
course.
healing, of course.
Like that I even have to say that is very indicative of the issue that we're in, right? Like the problems of the time. So, those people that, maybe didn't have the doctor training had way more healing effect on me just by the way they touched me, the way they looked at me, spoke to me,
So how do you bring that into your work today? And thank you for sharing that, Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, it's infused into everything that I do. It's inseparable. I mean, the reason I got into plant work, especially herbalism and, making remedies and helping people is because of what I went through and kind of seeking another way, And it's not to say that the hospitals don't have a place. Of course they do. I think we're in a time where things become so black and white and binary. It's like
it saves people all the time.
Yeah,
sure.
There's a time and place for it, but for general upkeep and maintenance of the organism, we have to learn the basics again, as human beings.
The basics.
What our grandparents all knew, what our great grandparents all knew to do to take care of each other at the home.
Holistic healing.
Yeah, holistic healing, and just like this was. Farmers knew how to do this. My teachers in Peru don't have maybe past a 3rd or 4th grade education, and they're like, I would consider them to be doctors.
Yeah.
By the plants they know how to use and the therapies they know how to work on.
Right, they know the antiseptic stuff.
All of it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, COVID didn't even touch them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They all got sick, but they all got better.
Talk about it. Because the solution is always the same.
It's the line is that for every illness on the planet, there's a plant to help it. And I really do feel like that's the truth. Seeing some serious cases down there of people very, very sick and coming around,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, man. Yeah, and you make like tinctures and stuff that you sell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have...
Is it like e-commerce or...?
Yeah, we do some stuff through...
Cool.
Right now, it's through... what I've been doing for years is just through my own Remember Plants Instagram, just people asking me, and then I'll post it here and there. I'm not the best at self-promotion when it comes to that.
It was grassroots.
Yeah, super grassroots, and then people would reach out to me like, yo, I have this going on, and I'd be like, okay, let me think, and I'll connect with you, and then we do a consult. That's usually the way I'll do it, is people write me. I'll send them an intake form that's like, several pages long of questions and things to be listed out, so I can really read into the situation very well, energetically, physically, and so on. And then I'll call them in like a week and give them a walkthrough of everything I found, and then some plants, if not plants, therapies, if not supplements, and so on, lifestyle changes that I suggest, because I can't prescribe. You got to be careful with the language.
To consider,
exactly. And so from there, then, the tinctures might come in, or teas, baths,
okay,
go watch a sunrise,
Yeah.
Simple things, prescribing beauty or suggesting. And so,
Okay.
and then besides that, we have a little collaboration going on too with my friends David and Maria. They grew some beautiful, incredible hemp flower, and we've been blending that with the plants that I harvest or procure. And so we've been making some blends, and they're really, really beautiful, like really good.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And you're going to grab some of that tobacco later.
Please.
To make some medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
cool.
That'd be great.
Yeah. All these plants have so many uses. It's amazing. We stigmatize them. Like tobacco, every time I bring up tobacco, we're like, oh, what is that? Meanwhile, we grew it for, they're still growing it all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a pest repellent.
Mm-hmm.
Like people have used it in like barns, like getting rid of pests. So
mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also, do you want to talk on it a little?
Ooh, that can be the whole podcast.
Yeah.
Beginning just to talk about tobacco.
Do an episode on each plant.
Oh my God. So, yeah, tobacco, I was raised the same as what you were saying, in the sense that, seeing the billboards like cancer, quit smoking, there's all these campaigns. And so I was raised really afraid of that plant, especially because my family members smoked cigarettes. And I was like, I would take them and hide them, throw them away, like really, 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 really scared.
Bad relationship with it.
Totally. And so then I head to Peru, first time like around 2012. And I started looking at the people, especially my dear friend, right, working with it, working with it. Okay, let's just start there, like working with it. And I was like, okay, and like he would have it in his hands, in his mouth, and using the smoke to cleanse. You talk about pest repellent. Well, imagine us also having pests. Wow. Yeah. And so it's like it works on the humans as well, both with the smoke and the consumption of it, and even just having it on you as like almost like Mm, let's say like a protective amulet kind of energy, because tobacco is so strong,
Yeah.
So things don't like that. The things that don't like it are the things you don't like either. It's kind of like that. And so,
That's so true, dude.
yeah.
It's hard to hear that, though.
So I started working with it because of him, and I really, really changed my life. It really did. And
It is a beautiful one.
Mhm.
When it runs through you, I've done like hape, is it called?
Mhm.
And it is cleansing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Different association that I grew up with.
Totally.
Right?
I mean, even just the realm of it being related to cancer, it's ironic to me because down there they use it to treat cancer.
No way.
Yeah, they use tobacco to.
So what's all these studies? So is it just overconsumption, or we've corrupted how we process it?
There's definitely a sort of like bastardization that's taken place. The chemicals are endless that they put with it, right? And then also just like the way it was marketed as like away from its original instructions is the way I would say, which is everything, So like what was it originally for? Like how do they originally use it? And how do they use it even still today? This is still going on, of course. So you have like, the chanupa of North America, the tobacco pipe used in relations in a good way. Down south you have mapacho, which is used to cleanse and to connect and offerings, pray, and so on. And so it's like there's a reverence woven in that's just so important.
Reverence.
And of course they sometimes just smoke, and even when they're just smoking, there's still like a respect of what they're doing. They're very aware of it, So yeah, it can also hurt you. I mean, the plant can straight up kill you down there if you drink it without guidance. It'll stop your heart. So it's like and because it's a plant that can kill you, it has a lot of power, and because it has power, it can help you or not. So it's like really about how it's being wielded,
So true.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph, I love talking to you about this stuff. I feel like we could relate so much on, like, for example, people here in America, like adults, kids, any age group, will sometimes see, like, they'll be in a garden, they'll be like, oh, you could just eat this? Like, they think they could just eat anything. Like, what do you, like, because like you said, the guidance is so important. It's like, I feel like we're lacking that so much in our society today with plants and all these things. Like, have you noticed that at all? And like teachers, I'll be with teachers in a garden, and they'll be wanting to eat, elderberry stalks,
Essentially, it feels like it comes down to like a crisis in education, Just even going, I reference Peru a lot because so much happened for me down there, but being in the Amazon and in Iquitos and like being with my friends' kids who were 3 years old, 4 years old, walking me through the rainforest, barefoot, showing me every single plant.
They were your guide.
My first guides were children down there, for sure.
That's
Absolutely.
so humbling.
8-year-old climbing a tree, 40 feet up, harvesting abu, caimito, filling 5-gallon buckets, So then coming back here and just
like
seeing
it's nothing.
like it's nothing, no fear. It's just the way they grow up,
Yeah.
It's another world. And,
Right.
it has its pluses and its minuses, of course. But in the way that you're saying, it's kind of like that line that's like, it's just a plant. People say that about a lot of different things, even if it's cannabis or something else. But there are just plants that can also stop you from living, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
they want to put everything in their mouths because it's in a garden, but
it's not just a plant.
No. And
it's its own deal, each thing.
Just like you said with the elderberry, you're talking about the elderberry stems, how they're poisonous, but the berries aren't, right?
Yeah. And you have to, and you have to process it.
Yeah, like take that little piece of plant material off the berry.
And I'm just saying anything, eating gaillardia, like putting it in their salad, like no, like learning these things.
Right.
A crisis in education.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, like we were speaking before we started recording, of just like being a child learning about where you live. It sounds so ridiculous that it's not happening, and it is to some degree beginning to take place. You've been in the school system teaching and building beds over there, and I see that, and other people are doing that kind of work. I think Dylan Terry does some of that with his business, but yeah, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, you're never bored, are you?
Dude, never. I see, yeah. My younger brother, like their whole age group or whatever, just whoever, they're telling me they're bored. How the hell are you bored, bro? Are you awake? I don't even watch news or any of it, and I can't stop being in awe, and constant awe. Every night I'm looking up at the stars and the moon, and I think that stuff's important, man.
hmm Even in the cities, I was born in Manhattan. I don't know if you knew that.
Wow.
I was raised in New York for the first 9 years of my life.
Wow.
So sometimes I go
Yeah.
back there and I see the city, and it's amazing how much goodness is growing through the sidewalk cracks. I don't know if you've seen that in Chicago recently, but
Goodness.
like the dandelion, the plantain, the mugwort.
Oh, interesting.
There's so much medicine in
I
the
saw
city.
plantain all over yeah.
Mhm.
We were eating mulberries in the
Mhm.
park, and
Mhm. So it's there. It's just it's got to
Mm.
be found and kind of remembered.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's goodness there.
that is so true, man.
Because a lot of people, I mean, there's billions of people in cities, so it's like sometimes I feel like in the world of like talking about these things, living life holistically, whatever, people can accrue a sort of shame of where they live because they're like in an apartment in the city. But honestly, like so much goodness can be still obviously cultivated in that way just by going out and recognizing that they're on the earth still below the concrete, Of course.
Of course.
If they zoom out, like they're still not on a planet, it's like, come on.
It's all perspective, right?
Yeah, learn about where you are.
Learning about where we are.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, but that's where it begins.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I used to take the camera out at every turning second, and I don't do it as much as I used to. It's really for special occasions, which is nice,
That's
like,
great.
Yeah. So like down there, I've been shooting a lot and just documenting the tradition and like what they do, and really helping to bring that back here eventually by publishing it. But really also documenting down there primarily to leave an offering for their children and grandchildren, because the interest level in like what their grandparents know isn't always there. And so, that wisdom is in a way leaving. And so
it's an offering for that.
Yeah. So
them.
like one day when they do wake up to the fact like, oh, my grandpa knew a lot. And so like I want to have a lot of that document. I do audio recordings like this, and I do some video, but a lot of audio and a lot of journaling and a lot of photography.
Beautiful. Documenting.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it is a balance. Some people, like I was just at my brother's wedding, just taking out the camera all the time and not being there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty tough.
Yeah, so, but like that's beautiful. You're doing that and capturing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it fills me with a lot of joy. And then, I'll get home some weeks later, develop the film, and send him through WhatsApp all the pictures. And he's really impressed. He likes them a lot.
Cool.
Because beautiful black and white. They look like they're hundreds of years old, and they live in such a way where I've been shooting primarily black and white down there because it's so green, right? It's like, it's so green in the Amazon that when you shoot color, it's kind of like, it doesn't pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
I've
the
seen
black and
video
white,
in the Amazon.
the black and white really makes it pop, like in a way that's just so incredible. Like kind of like, you ever see that film Embrace of the Serpent?
No.
Oh, have you seen that?
Yeah, I'll check it out.
You should see it. It's all in black and white, and I think it is at least. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the whole thing's in black and white. The way they filmed it's beautiful.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check it out. And it's film. You're doing film down there.
Film photography, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. There's an art to even just bringing a camera down there. Like I had a Canon down there, and I have a film camera there for years.
Because it's humid.
Dude, the humidity. Michael, you don't know this guy. There's a Kiwi camera in Orlando. He's like the patron saint of all things camera related. And I'd bring my cameras to him when I lived in Orlando a lot. And when I came back from Peru once, there was a fungus that had begun eating the glass of the lens. Like the actual glass elements. And a fungus was eating. He's like, I've never seen this in my whole life. He's been doing cameras for, 40, 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
A fungus on the lens of the camera.
On the lens, in the glass. So I stopped bringing digital stuff for the most part. And then like now I have, a dry bag with silica packs, and like I really am attentive, where before I would just let it hang out. And then I'd be like, my film wouldn't even wind. It would jam from the humidity expanding the film. So like things down there don't last, but there's a beauty to it, right? There's a beauty to it. And it's like the things that do last. 'Cause nothing lasts. Exactly. Their scale of impermanence is so, it's so real. And, it's just like, imagine we lived in Florida without AC.
Right.
It would be the same thing here.
That's like what came to mind.
None of this would be okay.
Yeah.
So they're, even their homes, like when they, they don't upkeep a casita, these little houses like for one or two people, within a few months, the Amazon takes it over. And the jungle grows through the floors and grows through the roofs. And like it literally, I'll send you some photos. It's some of the most amazingly wild things. Like imagine Florida taking over a home that had the roof cave in,
So
the same thing would happen here.
Totally. Yeah, nature persists, man. No, no matter how climate control we got it. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So what do you think about like civilizations living in the Amazon? Like past civilizations being wiped out? Is that a thing? Like,
Oh yeah, it definitely happened. I mean, there's various stages to that having taken place, and even continuing right now for sure. And with the different threats that are going on, mostly from what I witnessed personally, the lumber exploitation is pretty bad, man. You'll be near the entrance of the city, or even on like the main highway going through where I'm at, and you'll see trees the width of this room on trucks.
yeah,
500-year-old trees, 800-year-old trees.
mahogany stuff. Like,
Mahogany, yeah, some of that.
what are the trees?
Lupuna, Sebapatandra, some mahogany for sure.
And they're just encroaching on
Absolutely,
these
and
tribes.
they'll poach them. So they go on lands that aren't theirs and cut them down, man. And it's like mafia.
I've heard of that.
It's mafia level stuff. It's pretty crazy.
It is.
So that's very real, And then you also have like land grabbing going on down there, where people like organized. It's essentially organized crime, where like they go through and have people squat on your land and take it with arms, like armed robbery of your land.
Like,
and
you don't come back.
they threaten to kill you,
Yeah.
And it's really wild. It's happening, and there's stories about it being connected with different groups, and it's pretty intense. So like where I go, there's no police. They police themselves, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And so when I was there last year,
wow.
they heard chainsaws that weren't theirs, and they ran over to the area they heard them in, and there was a neighbor that had sold a piece of their land to some random people who didn't know better.
No way.
Yeah, and they were cutting all the trees down to put a farm. And so it's like this happens all the time down there. Wow. So it's like, but in their style, policing in their own way, they don't have to wait for anyone. The guy just punched him in the face and it was over.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't ever come back here.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's kind of like Wild Wild West in a way. And I've noticed, there's benefits to it being like that, and then there's also it's like a lot more on your shoulders and on your back,
Yeah, and yeah, I've heard of this. Yeah, it's interesting, man, and honestly awful. Like that's their land. They, it's happening to the tribes in Africa. The Hadza tribes are being encroached on.
Yeah, I mean, it's
from exploiting the land too. It's like it makes it even worse, bro.
Yeah, looking for gold. I know gold digging happens a lot in areas of the Andes.
Yeah.
Which is terrible, man. Like what they do to get to the gold. Like they'll poison rivers, detonating the earth, blowing it up. It's like really crazy. And so everything downstream of that, all the fish die. It's like, there's definitely endless reasons to be upset about things.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
But
what do we focus on, Ralph? Tell people. I'm just playing. By the way, I asked you about I meant to say ancient civilizations, but thank you for bringing that up because it had to be brought up.
Yeah, it's funny. We were watching some of that Graham Hancock series on Netflix last night. It's really amazing, and I think he goes to Peru in one of those series potentially. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, down there, it's similar to Florida. Imagine, what we have here at the Shell Mountains. Like, we don't have like temples around Florida, so to speak, like they do in Mexico or in Egypt and things like that.
Right.
The structures of what once were in the Amazon get eaten by the jungle, and if they were made from stone, then those edifices are still around, but they're deep in, man. And so there are stories, like I have friends that have been days and days and days into areas where if you encounter the tribes, they just kill you. And that's how they protect themselves. They just spear you, like no questions asked. They don't even, if you didn't come with one of them, they kill you.
Like if they see you.
If they see you, you're done,
Wow.
And so he was on the brink of those areas and encountering these stone pieces with art on them that were super old, So there's things there that are like, showing evidence of some super old experiences down there. And one of our dear friends says that the Amazon rainforest is it's like the nucleus of which when we go through these cataclysmic changes, ice ages and so on, giant earth floods, the earth completely comes to a standstill except for the Amazon, and then replenishes both, flora and fauna from there again. So it's like you can kind of see it as this undulating, and yeah, exactly, like this thing that goes like this, breathing system that starts from there and goes out. And personally thinking about it, it makes sense from like, the Amazon of South America, and then we have, the Amazons of Asia, Africa, and so on, like these centers of such incredible biodiversity that held on, and then they kind of like expand and contract from those points. It really made me think.
Interesting.
Right,
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't explored like super ancient civilizations down
Yeah.
there. My time has not been focusing on that too much, but they are,
Cool.
you can feel it for sure,
Man, that's so interesting. You can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. I feel it in Florida sometimes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
Atlantis, whatever you want to say, like
Mhm.
just people before us
Hmm.
living here.
I think that it feels to me that Florida is the uppermost reach of the Amazon. I've always
Yeah.
said that, and it feels
I
like
love that you said that, bro. I love that.
it really feels true to me. And I brought it up to someone. Actually, I did bring it up to him. He brought it up to me, and I've never heard anyone else tell me that.
Who?
His name's Richard, and I can't remember his last name right now, but he owns a nursery in Boynton. Probably the best native plant nursery ever. But he's like,
Sick.
yeah,
I have
Cool.
to check it out.
it's called Mesozoic.
Okay.
He's kind of close to the public, so he's like a special one.
Yeah.
But he
That's what happens. It's the
Uh-huh.
evolution.
he told me that he's like, we're in the Florida Amazon, we're in the Caribbean, essentially, in South Florida. And I looked at him, I was like, that's what I always say,
Wow.
because we have this crossover of these species and genera that literally stretch down all the way south and come all the way up here. I mean, even just looking at our staple crop cross section is the same.
It's the exact same.
Right?
Wow.
So then what to say about that? And the peoples were trading and moving these plants north and south forever,
All up in there. That's why, yeah. And it's interesting. Yeah, who knows? We could go super deep, but I think the same stuff. And I'm glad we're talking about that. Like Puerto Rico, you go there and you're like, do you ever go like Costa Rica or Puerto Rico or any of these places?
Michelle's Puerto Rican, and we really need to go there. And I have some
Yo.
friends that we've developed some relationships through Instagram and stuff, and I really do want to check it out.
Get
if
a
I go there,
flight?
I don't think I would come back.
Wow.
And what you
yeah.
can grow, it's
Yeah.
like the little Amazon, man. It's like, what, zone 11 or something like that? Zone
It
12?
is so chill too.
Mm-hmm.
But they have this beautiful rainforest called the Giunta.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's rainforest.
on the east, right?
It's an actual rainforest. Yeah, it's like southeast,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, but there's a bunch of permaculture down there, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It feels weird talking about permaculture with you,
Why?
or using that word, because it is so much deeper than. Although all respect to Bill Mawson and his stuff, but yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like what is meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Working with nature and not against it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
a given to you and I, but not to corporate America,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I mean, if they could see the dollar signs coming from it, I think they would latch onto the systems theory.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, if you if applied to business, it makes sense, and how to observe, see the flow, stacking functions, all these things work economically as well, from what I understand at least.
Exactly.
But yeah,
So why are we doing it the other way? Why are we being separate?
I don't know.
All of it.
Call your bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, the words get it looks like we move through fads in the gardening, agricultural scene, move through fads with different names and things like that. Yeah, and then people get upset with this one and that one. It's like, okay, at the end of the day, man, it's like pick up a shovel and just start getting to work.
I love that.
Learn,
bro.
figure it out on your land and observe it.
Pick up a shovel and get to work.
Yeah, it's like, because we can theorize until we're blue in the face, but what's the point if you're not actually doing something?
Yeah. And
So
beyond
to
that,
say
and
that you know something.
and observing the plants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think isn't that rule one?
Isn't
No,
that
rule,
what- yeah.
what's rule one? Is like make a harvest, I think. So you
Rule
can
one
eat.
is there are no rules.
Oh, God.
I'm just-
Fight Club.
What are the principles? Yeah, exactly. So anyways, Rob, it's been amazing having you, man. I wish we could do this all day.
Mm-hmm. I guess like one thing I was thinking about on the way here is like because sometimes people will connect my story of like how I got sick to then going to the Amazon as if it was like one day after the other. It was a process of many years of like discovery. It went from like learning how to cook at home and like getting into the whole food rabbit hole of like learning different preparations. I went into the vegan world. I started getting out of the vegan world. I worked in, different scenarios of within food, and then seeing like, oh, I can grow plants, and then how to bring those plants into the kitchen. So it's been like, 10, 12 years longer of learning and forming this like lifestyle, and I think that's what it comes down to, is like people are looking for like the magic pill or like the way to go. And I think the biggest thing I've gleaned, if you could say so, about like being down in Peru and like even meeting my teachers in Florida, is like living. you know, because people will get so obsessed about the information and so anxious about the way of collecting and collecting and collecting, and they don't actually apply because they're like obsessed with collecting. And I've been there. I know this feeling very well, and I catch myself sometimes in it too, even still. But it's like, you know, actually,
You see it in them because you see it in yourself.
of
That's what you're
course,
saying.
of course. And so like actually,
Caught up with the information, bro.
yeah, it's like obsession with like, you know, even listening to podcasts and like
Yeah.
getting obsessed with trying to like catch everything. And it's like, then what do? You know, you still gotta do your thing all
You
day.
still gotta live.
Right. And so it's like how to apply. That's what I'm seeing in my own life is like I have to apply what I've learned and actually live it, you know? Like
Brother,
spend time in the garden.
That's so good. I appreciate you saying that, because that is not just a nugget. That's the whole thing, man. Like, pick up a shovel, let's get it. That's the bottom line. And then you develop it. Like you said, your journey was you went from vegan to just learning how to use ingredients in the kitchen. And what are these things?
Even cooking. I mean, how many people our age aren't even preparing meals?
Yeah, man.
And I know that, you know, like, oh, I work 9 to 5. I get that. I understand. But like any kind of small efforts make huge changes. So it's like it's so easy in this day and age to get overwhelmed with what to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'm being
I have to do all my meal plans and do it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Being pressured by influencers left and right to like live this like, you know, minimalist, you know, zero, carbon footprint thing. And it's just like, it's so unrealistic. It's like we have to be in some way, if we're like leading and helping others, guiding them in a realistic way, because it can get so, it's almost like manipulative in a way, because it's like, yeah, live like this. Then we leave and we do everything the opposite, opposing what we just said.
Andy, by the way, shout out Andy. Andy Ferk, yeah, right?
Always shout out to Andy.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, man, you're better. He's like, man, let's all go get burritos after this. Like, just joking, you know? Like, but like, that's what you're talking about, bro. Like, applying it. And little changes, and not being overwhelmed by, oh, I have to do it all right now. But like, hey, taking all these mangoes that are everywhere and dehydrating it and having a badass snack for 2 months and or whatever. But that's so beautiful, man. Yeah. So Ralph, you're a special person, man. Thanks for coming on. Is there anything else you want to share with the world before we leave?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone that has supported me along the way and continues to, and, you know, to my family for putting up with the 1,000 potted plants that I litter every property with that we have. You know, just, you know, the gratitude and the patience that people have had with me in learning and getting to where I'm at and where I'm going, and the benefit of, or the desire to have benefit to others, man. It really helped, you know, an ailing world, kind of bring some relief if I can.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.